Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful idea. And we're going to see it play out in one of the most epic stories ever told, the story of Moses. It's a story that shows us two completely different ways to live. And really, it all comes down to one big question. So how close is God, really? I mean, is he someone who's right there with you in your day-to-day life? Or is he more of a distant, maybe even unknowable force way out there? Well, the material we're digging into today says the answer to that question, it actually depends entirely on you.
So here's the core idea we're going to unpack. It's this. For someone with faith, God is intimately, personally near. But for someone who operates from a place of unbelief, he can feel impossibly distant. And to really get our heads around this, we're going to look at the incredible life of Moses, a man who truly saw both sides of this.
Okay, so our story doesn't start with some big, heroic moment. Nope, it begins with a long, slow-burn preparation. You could almost call it God's 80-year plan, a making process designed to forge the leader who would one day deliver an entire nation.
Moses starts his life at the very top. I mean, think about it. He's born a Hebrew slave, but by a crazy twist of fate, he ends up being raised as a prince in Pharaoh's own palace. He literally has it all: the best education, incredible status, real power. He's comfortable, he's influential, his life looks set. But behind the scenes, something totally different was being planned for him. Now, when you look at this timeline, what just jumps out is the sheer amount of time we're talking about. 40 years as a prince, living in total luxury. Then another 40 years as a forgotten shepherd in the middle of nowhere. That's 80 years. And the point being made here is so powerful. This wasn't wasted time. It wasn't a mistake. These two huge, contrasting chunks of his life were the essential ingredients God was using to forge the leader he needed to become.
So you've got this 80-year setup. How does it all come to a head? Well, it starts with the story's first major conflict. After 4 decades in the palace, Moses feels this pull to help his people. But when he tries to step up and be the leader he thinks he's meant to be, he gets shut down hard. So he's 40 years old, and he sees an Egyptian abusing a Hebrew slave. He steps in, he kills the Egyptian. Now, in his mind, this is an act of justice. He's probably thinking, okay, this is it. They're going to see I'm on their side, that God is using me to rescue them. But that is not how they saw it at all. And this is the moment everything changes. The very next day, Moses tries to break up a fight between two of his own people, and this is what they throw back in his face. Can you hear the sarcasm in that? Who made you a ruler and a judge over us? It's just dripping with cynicism and disbelief. It's a total rejection. And the fallout from that one question is massive. Moses, the powerful prince of Egypt, has to run for his life. He ends up spending the next 40 years, another whole lifetime, as a shepherd in the wilderness. His big mission? It looks like a complete and total failure.
But you know what? That is not where the story ends. Not even close. Because after 4 decades of silence, of being forgotten, God himself steps in. And this is the divine answer to that very human rejection. So now Moses is 80 years old. He's out in the desert, and he has this incredible supernatural encounter with a bush that's on fire but isn't burning up. And God speaks to him and gives him the exact same mission that he failed at 40 years before. Go back to Egypt, deliver my people. Remember this question? The one full of scorn and disbelief? The one that sent him running into the desert for 40 years? Well, get ready, because after all that time, God is about to give the final, definitive answer. And here it is. This is just beautiful. God's answer to their cynical question was to take the very man they rejected, the one they pushed away, and say, oh yeah, I'm making him your ruler and your redeemer. The authority didn't come from Moses' own strength or sass. It came directly from God. Okay, so you can really see the two paths taking shape here, right? You've got the path of faith, which Moses is now walking, and the path of unbelief, which so many of his people chose. And as the story of the Exodus unfolds, we see the radically different places these two paths lead. This chart just lays it all out so clearly. Look at the fruits of faith, what we see through Moses. His actions lead to miracles, signs, wonders. I'm talking parting the Red Sea, water from a rock, amazing things. The direction is always toward freedom, toward God.
But then you look at the other side, the fruits of unbelief. What does that lead to? Well, their actions lead them to build a golden calf and worship it. Their direction, they're constantly wanting to go back to Egypt, back to slavery. And the result? Judgment and wandering in the desert for years. It's so clear. Two paths, two completely different destinies. So you might be thinking, okay, cool story, but what does this have to do with me, right here, right now? Well, the idea here is that this making process that Moses went through, it's actually a kind of blueprint for how God can work in our own lives, especially when things get tough. So here's the big takeaway. Those difficult times, those periods of waiting where it feels like nothing is happening, those moments that feel like failure, they don't have to be the end of the story. If we can approach them with faith, just trusting that there's a purpose even if we can't see it, those very trials can become the training ground, the preparation for what we're called to do. And to make this super real, the source gives a personal example. The speaker was facing this absolutely impossible deadline at work, just completely crushed by the pressure. They prayed about it, totally overwhelmed, and just one word came to mind: extend. That's it. Just a simple feeling, a quiet promise that somehow an extension was coming. And for weeks, nothing. The pressure actually got worse. But then, right when things were at a breaking point, the manager who had set the impossible deadline just unexpectedly announced the whole thing was being pushed into the next year. Wow, the difficulty became the very stage for the breakthrough. And so that really leaves us with this final question to think about. If you look at the challenges, the waiting periods in your own life, if you look at them through this lens, what might God be preparing you for? What purpose is being forged in your own making process?